take place or go back to offices and resume.
So you didn't get a chance to befriend anybody?
Well, you talking about, well, you did if you were assigned to the same offices as them or the same detail. But you would get acquainted with them.
But they didn't give you a chance to become buddy-buddy, I guess, right? I mean, wouldn't that be part of
work? I mean, you'd show up there, you would fly in like the day before a visit, and then you would be involved in like meetings and things together, and then but all of us were trained the same way, so we all knew how to work together.
So he got a chance to go to Mar-a-Lago, and there was 3, I guess, security guards or whatever behind me while I ate. And so after it was over, you know me, next thing I know, I'm talking to this guy. He says, yeah. I said, my cousin used to be with the Secret Service. And he said, what's his name? I said, Tim Gobble. And he said, oh, I know Tim. And I said, well, I'll tell him you said hey. And he said, well, he won't remember me. And I said, sure he will. He said, no, he won't remember me. But his name was Steve Hines.
And I do remember him. He's from Chicago.
He was a really nice guy.
Yeah, he was. I always liked him. And we had, I don't remember any particular assignments that we had together, but I remember knowing him and working with him and liking him. He's a good fella. So he's still there, still working.
Now, when you say like, isn't it funny how you just like some people?
Yeah.
And other people...
Well,
Why
some
is
people
that?
are more likable than others, I guess.
Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe it's personality.
But it's true, right?
Well, some people I think you just naturally hit it off with.
Somebody I might like, you might not like.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. See, yeah, you and I like each other, and there may be somebody like you, but not
and I
particularly
liked that
me.
guy.
And, yeah,
I liked him.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a nice guy.
Yeah. But some of it's the role you play too. I mean, there's probably people that don't like him. There's just like there's people that don't like me, and I'm sure there's people that don't like you.
Sure.
And some of it has to do with the role that you've had to play. You may have had to been their supervisor, and cause them to work an assignment that maybe they didn't want to work or something like that.
Principal at the school, or
it could be a number of things. But so who knows?
I remember I got a paddling in 4th grade by this principal, and I never did like him. You know, so maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was me.
Do you remember? Did you ever have Ron Hill, Pastor Hill? He's preached over at East Cleveland over there. He was in Cleveland Middle School at one time.
Man, I liked him.
I did too. I really liked him, but he gave me the hardest paddling I've ever had. He had a paddle about this long. It had holes drilled in it, and for some reason, I think it was a spitball. We were throwing spitballs, me and other boys. I think we'd been warned. And he called us again.
At middle school, you mean Cleveland Junior High?
Cleveland Junior High at the time, yeah. It's now Cleveland Middle. But
Dee Frisbee.
I remember it to this day. Yeah, Dee Frisbee was the principal.
Now, I think that guy later, didn't he run for city council or something?
I think he might have. I don't know. I know he pastored a church over in East Cleveland somewhere. And I've run into him several times back when I was sheriff and different things. Not anything bad, obviously, but just see him around town. And anyway, we were friends.
I think he was on the city planning commission.
Okay.
That's what
you were with you over there? Yeah.
And he wrote I think later he went to work for Lee College.
Possibly,
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, may have been. But I like him, and I guess he's still around. I'm not sure.
I think he was. I think so. Yeah.
So it's been a while since I've seen him.
So, you know, was you in the Secret Service before you was in the Treasury, or was it TBI first?
The Secret Service, when I first joined, was part of the United States Treasury Department. That's where it was created. It was created in 1865. Right. Incidentally, what's unusual is on the day that President Lincoln was assassinated. See, there wasn't Secret Service protection at that point. There was a lone Washington, D.C. police officer that had been assigned to guard his booth while he was at the play at Ford's Theater.
While
he had stepped away for a few minutes
while
for
he
some
was
reason.
shot by Booth.
Booth, yeah, guard the booth, shot my booth. Coincidence, I guess some sort of coincidence, at least in names.
Yeah.
But anyway, but on that very day, Lincoln had signed the orders to create the Secret Service for the sole purpose of suppressing counterfeit money, because after the Civil War, as much as 1/3 to 1/2, if I recall my numbers right, currency in circulation was counterfeit, and it was undermining the fledgling economy of the nation at that time because people couldn't rely on the value of the currency. So Lincoln was trying to stop that, and they created this federal police force, Secret Service, to stop that. But it wasn't until, I believe it was 1905, after the assassination of McKinley, and several presidents had been assassinated, that the Secret Service picked up protecting presidents and vice presidents, the president. So they still do investigation of counterfeit currency, but they've added in a whole lot of more presidential protection, a whole lot more.
Everything gets bigger.
It does, it grows.
All
over time.
good ideas become big.
And some of it's necessary. I
Sure,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, if
Especially the Secret
presidents were
Service.
safe, if they were safe and could do their job without threat of bodily injury or harm, you wouldn't need the Secret Service.
Well, can you imagine living during that time, and the president got assassinated, and couldn't count on somebody say, "Oh, I'll buy this from you. Here's some money." They'd say, "Is that real money or not?" I'd say, "Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
He gave it to me."
It wouldn't be good for any.
Or you
trade,
buy
yeah.
something and say, "Oh, I bought this. I gave it to him."
And banks at the time were chartered. A lot of different banks were chartered to print their own money. There wasn't a centralized printing like now the United States government through the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. And I've been in a room there. Part of our training, they teach you how to determine what's counterfeit and what's genuine. And they take you over to that Bureau of Engraving and Printing. You see the whole process and how they do the printing. And then they take you up to Dalton, Massachusetts at the Crane paper mill that makes the paper for currency exclusively for the United States government. It's got certain features in it. But I've been in a room full of just stacks of money, millions and millions of dollars over there. It's kind of impressive to see.
Was that real money or fake money?
No, it's all real.
What do they do with the fake money?
They burn it after once it's
like
taken
they-
out of the currency.
looks like they'd hang
Federal
on to
Reserve
it
gets
for-
it, and the
for-
banks gets it.
For educational purposes.
Well, they do. I mean,
some,
some
right?
of it, the Secret Service agents have access to some of it, so they can train and teach people about it.
Remember on the Beverly Hillbillies when Granny Clampett had Confederate money?
It's one of my favorite shows.
She was trying to pass it off or something.
I liked it when she got her shotgun out. She meant business then. Thank you for these coats, by the way.
Yeah, there's some ice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
These are the
Those are
special
real.
ones, aren't
Those
they?
are
These
the real
thing.
deal.
And I love them out of the bottles too. They're a lot better.
They're made with real sugar.
Yeah, and I have been buying the little Cokes out of the bottles because I think they just taste better, don't you?
Yeah, those are the real McCoy.
Yeah.
And you can drink those, and they'll make you nervous. They got real caffeine, real sugar. I mean, that's real Coke, isn't it?
By the time this is over, we may be both.
Well,
people may not know that you and I are cousins.
oh yeah, first cousins.
Our mothers are sisters.
We know enough to put each other in jail.
Might should have been a few times.
But thinking about that, we grew up same, raised the same. You're a police officer. I'm a general contractor. Well, what's different? What? Why am I doing this and you're doing that?
Yeah, I've wondered that too. Some of it's just fate, the way things happen, I think. I don't know. I mean, if you remember back when we were little, you may remember me. I always liked the old police TV shows.
Adam 12.
Adam 12 was one. Reed and Malloy, remember them? And then
Let's
Hawaii 5-0 was another one. And maybe that influenced me to get into law enforcement at some point.
And you liked Andy Griffith, which he was
and Andy Griffith, yeah.
But Reed and Malloy, would they still be alive?
Possibly, yeah, I'd say.
What year would that have been?
Well, I was born in '63, so I probably wouldn't have even known anything until I was
You'd have been
much. I'd had to have been 10 years old, probably 73 in the.
73, and it wasn't reruns. That was the real show, right?
Yeah.
What night would it come on? Do you remember?
I'm thinking it was Tuesday nights. I'm thinking, or maybe.
You
Thursday,
always had
I
to
can't
watch
remember.
it.
Yeah, I always watched them. I liked that.
They always
That and
had the-
Hawaii Five-0, McGarrett and Dano, Steve McGarrett.
I remember
Dano.
them.
Remember them?
Yeah. Book 'em, Dano.
Book 'em down. Book 'em Dano. Yeah. Book 'em Dano. And then there was another show, Emergency. Remember
I
that?
couldn't get into that.
That wasn't as much police. That was
It was more of a
fire and medical.
and drama.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
And then there was a doctor on that show, Dr. Brackett, and the nurse. Remember the nurse? They had always phone in. That was one of the first
That's right,
mobile
that's right,
phones.
that's right,
They'd be
yeah.
out there working on the patient. They'd phone in to the
That was
emergency
way
room,
early.
and they'd say, "Start an IV with D5W and transport as soon as possible." Then they'd cut to a commercial.
Yeah. No matter what.
yeah.
But now the other one, what was the one before that where they were all serious? It was the guy that was Colonel Potter on MASH, but prior to
You're talking about a police show, not
Yeah,
Hogan's, not Hogan's Hero.
no, this one was earlier than those, and it had Friday, the guy named Friday.
Dragnet.
Dragnet, yeah. Boy, that was
Yeah.
good. That
Yeah,
was
that
like
was good, but that was really sort of before my time. But I've seen
that
reruns
was
and
like,
things like that.
when they didn't know drugs, psychedelics,
Yeah.
he would always give them the speech,
Yeah,
give them the speech,
yeah,
and then at the end the guy would realize he was wrong and change his ways.
yeah, they had real good music, like
Yeah.
the real.
and
solid-
it always said,
just the facts, man.
yeah, but at the beginning of the show it'd say, the names of the people have been changed to protect their innocence. But the story was true.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
right.
really made it
Yeah.
seem
Yeah,
authentic.
yeah.
So then
Well,
later,
it was. The stories were true. They just not changed the names. They were-
and then later came Adam 12.
I think so. Yeah.
I bet nobody
so.
remembers Adam 12.
Yeah, I don't know. And there was another police show too called The Rookies. Remember that one?
That came later.
Later on, yeah, that was later on. But I don't know. Maybe that's one thing that influenced me to get into law enforcement at some point, or wanted to. And I started with the Cleveland Police Department in '87 as a reserve.
But
and
you
in
had
88
already been.
No,
I remember you called me from Al Gore's house.
maybe, yeah.
You said-
I was.
You said, I'm watching a squirrel up in the tree. I remember you said there was a squirrel at the tree.
About the only thing going on
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah. I don't remember calling, but I mean that time. But I know we talked a lot during that time.
But I'm going to say that's where, but that was out of high school. I mean, out of college.
Well, no, out of college. So I graduated from high school here in '82, and then fall of '82 went to Lipscomb in Nashville. And you were up there at some point.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
different
yeah,
things.
yeah,
There were different
yeah.
church events
yeah.
and different things up there. So I remember that. And then in '86, I stayed around after I graduated in '86 from college. Stayed around Nashville for a little while, and then ended up back here when Christy and I got engaged. And I worked for the Cleveland Police Department.
That's prior to going.
Prior to going.
Oh, okay. I remember now. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the Secret Service hired me in March of 1989, and I was with them until 2004.
89 to 2004.
Yeah, 15 years.
So, but there wasn't a. Boy, that's a long time.
Yeah, I went in under the first President Bush, 41, George Herbert Walker Bush, and then Bush, Clinton, and then Bush, and then I was out in 2004.
Had you met all those presidents?
Yes, yeah, I met them all. I liked them all actually. They're all
Everybody-
the ones that served while I was in the Secret Service,
Which
and
was have
then
been Bush.
Clinton, and Bush, and then also former presidents. Secret Service
Bush one, Clinton, and Bush, and then who else?
Well, that was after Bush was president after I was out of the Secret Service. I
Okay.
never actually protected Obama, after that. But I was very familiar with how the presidency and the vice presidency operated and all behind the scenes. And then former presidents, Carter, Reagan, Ford, not Nixon, and I was never around Nixon.
So you were around Ford?
Yeah, yeah. As a former president, when he was a former president. They were all, there's a business relationship with them. I mean, in terms of you're there to do a job, you're not there to be their friend, so to speak. But there is interaction at times, and I found them all to be just pretty decent human beings. Good.
When you're around them, do you say, "Aha, that's why they're president"?
Well, they're all very driven people, I found. I mean, they're focused on the job. I mean, you have to be because of the nature. I mean, I think it's the hardest job in the world.
Sure, yeah.
Although George Bush, 41, said he thought the hardest job in all of public service was county sheriff. So I was county sheriff at one time. So,
I'd say that would be a harder job, that and a preacher.
Preachers like being in an elective office. You can't please everybody.
Yeah, plus you're not there for a certain time. At least with elected office,
you got 4 years
till the next term.
Yeah, at least, yeah. Yeah, preacher, I guess.
You'd have to start agreeing with everybody, wouldn't you? To stay.
Yeah. We've got us a good preacher down at East Brainerd. I go to church at East Brainerd Church of Christ now.
What's his name?
Chris Barnett. He's really good. He's one of the best preachers I have ever heard in terms
I've never met a Barnett I didn't like.
Yeah.
Think about it.
I don't think I have
A
either.
Barnett.
Yeah.
I've known several.
Yeah.
Where's he from?
Well, I think he's from North Georgia originally, but we had heard about him and how good he was, and we wanted to see about that. And of course, I think he's very good, and I'd encourage people to come. Of course, preachers up here too are good too, but it's a bigger church down there. They got a lot of resources, and they're able to do a lot of things down
We'll
there.
give
So
this
it's good
guy
to be
a couple
part
of
it.
years, and everybody will be mad at him.
He's been there. Well, he's actually been there 10 years.
10
Yeah, 10
years.
years, which is a long time really for a preacher.
Yeah.
But I don't know of anybody that's mad at him right now.
10 years. That's
Yeah.
Do you think he was always wanting to be a preacher?
I don't know, but he grew up in Ringo. Do you remember where? You remember C.J. Scott Griffith's dad. What was his name?
All I know about
C.G.
C.G. Griffith.
Remember, there's a church in Fort Oglethorpe, I believe, is where Chris Barnett grew up.
Oh, so that's
So there's some connections there.
because Fort Oglethorpe you could walk to Ringo.
Yeah,
Remember Bob Brandy?
I do remember.
He was from Ringo.
Yeah, watched him on TV. TV, and there was a horse. What was the name of the horse?
Rebel.
You got a good memory.
I got a good
memory.
when it comes to TV. And his wife's name was Ingrid.
Okay, see, I don't remember. What about Shock Theater? You remember that, don't you? Remember coming over? Yeah, you do, because
Shock
me,
Theater,
you,
but-
and Tony, and all of us would come over, and at 11 o'clock on Saturday night, we'd watch Shock Theater.
Theater.
And I'd always start getting sleepy, and you and Tony never got sleepy.
Tony does now, doesn't he?
Yeah.
See, what was that guy's
Y'all
name?
just try to stay up all night, and I
all
never
night.
could stay up all
Why
night.
do we always want to stay up
I don't know.
What's the big
couldn't
deal about
understand
that?
it because I wanted to go to sleep.
I remember Tony got out there one night and he was starting to get sleepy, so he started shooting the basketball, so he wouldn't go to sleep.
And you remember sneaking out of the house and going down to the chalet
Oh yeah,
and running around down there and swimming in their pool,
I remember that.
the old chalet.
But going back to what we say, well, yeah, all those shows you mentioned were a policeman in everything. It was some kind of a saving thing, wasn't it?
Maybe that's what attracted me to it, is they were are portrayed in a respectful way that people looked up to them, that they helped people and
It could
did
have very
good
well-
things in the community.
It could have been a doctor.
Could have been, yeah.
It just happened to be those shows, maybe.
Yeah. Well,
But-
I think they have things that happened that were kind of exciting to people. It's not an everyday thing, and people like to hear about it. It made it for a good TV show.
Well, maybe it was where you saw appreciation, that people got respect. They say people will do what they think people respect in life. If they see
maybe that's part
a
of it.
teacher or a preacher or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. So I don't know. I don't know what you never really know. I don't guess what causes you to do certain things. But you've been very successful in your chosen field, and you help people. In fact, I live in a house that you built.
That's right.
You and your team
that's right.
built, and it's
Still
still holding
there.
up. And it's been a good quality.
Yeah, it's still
home.
there. Still there.
Still there. No major problems. I mean, other than just your regular normal thing that any house has.
Yeah, everything
kind of replaces this after a while.
You know, wood rots, doesn't it?
Yeah.
After time,
When it's
or at least
when it's
front
exposed to
porch
the
or
elements
whatever,
over for periods of time. Yeah.
Now, which president would you say that you met that you thought, man, me and that guy could have gone and got a cup of coffee and been fine?
Well, really, all of them had their, human points that you liked and respect. But just to be honest with you, Bill Clinton probably, he was really a likable individual in terms of just sitting down and talking with him, and you could talk with him, and he would make you think that you and him had been friends forever and that you knew each other just very well.
Well, now that must have been a gift he had, because I've heard that from other people.
Yeah, and he was a very intelligent person, but he was able to relate to the average everyday person.
Without, I can tell some people trying to relate to me, and I can tell it's just they're not good at it.
Yeah.
So he was pretty good at it.
He was very good at it, and but it was genuine too. It wasn't fake in my view. And in fact, have you ever heard of this guy named Ron Kessler? He writes a lot of books, and he's on Newsmax, the TV show.
Is that the guy that does the body language stuff?
I'm not sure.
Like shaking, how you shake hands and stuff?
He's written a lot of books on government agencies and anything. Anyway, he wrote a book called Inside the Secret Service, and I was at home on a Sunday afternoon. This was after I was out of the Secret Service, and Christy came in and said, "There's a guy from Washington on the phone would like to speak to you." And I got on the phone and
Thought it was just wanting to sell you a car warranty.
I mean, he introduced himself. I'd kind of known who Ron Kessler was, and he explained what he was doing. He's writing a book about the Secret Service, and he was looking for former agents and stories or information about the Secret Service that would help him in his book. And he said, "What I'm actually looking for is some like negative story or something on presidents." And specifically, he was at the point in the book where he was trying to find something on Bill Clinton. And I told him that that wasn't my style in terms of I wouldn't relate a negative story about anybody that I had protected. I said, but I will tell you something that I think's good and positive about Bill Clinton, if you care to hear it. And he said, "Well, okay, tell me." And he said, "I might use it. I don't know." And I told him about a time when we were out in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Bill Clinton had gone out there for some sort of high school reunion or something while he was president. And my particular assignment that day was, on that event, was to help secure the floors of the hotel in which he was staying. Anytime a president stays in a hotel, the Secret Service secures really the whole place, but specifically the floor that the presidential suite is on or where he's going to be staying, floor above it and the floor below it, 360-degree protection, make sure we know who's in those rooms and what they are, and then it's all swept for bombs, explosives, listening devices, bulletproof resistant glass. All this is brought in and put in so to make him secure and make sure. I mean, it's a big operation, and part of the even people that are on the floor, if they're not Secret Service or immediate White House staff, have to be escorted while they're there. So while President Clinton was either not there in his suite, you'd have the cleaning service people could be escorted on the floor, but they had to be watched the whole time by the Secret Service, and everything that they brought in there had to be known what it was. And anyway, part of my assignment was to make sure that those people were always out of the way, but did their job, and during that time. So Clinton was leaving to go somewhere, and one thing about Bill Clinton was he was always late. Now, one thing I kind of noticed when I was there, the Democrats always run a little late, and the Republicans are right on time.
Isn't
They
that
follow
funny?
the schedule a little bit better,
Yeah.
but the Democrats run a little something.
Or at least those Democrats.
Those did. But anyway, so it was about, he was late leaving his suite. He was going to walk down the corridor of the hallway of the hotel room, go down an elevator, a freight elevator, down to the underground parking in the motorcade, and go to his event. Well, there was two. They came over the radio and said the president was about to be moving to the motorcade, clear the hallways, sterilize the hallways. That means get everybody out of there that's not supposed to be there. Well, those two cleaning ladies, I said, okay, ladies, it's time to. They're African Americans. I said, it's time to go. I said, the president's about to move. We need to clear out. So they said, okay. They said, hey, and I'd kind of befriended them a little bit. They said, we've never seen a president before. And even though they had, they said, you think there's anywhere we could stand to see just a glimpse of him as he came? And I said, you know what? There was a big T, the hallway T down. His suite was here. He'd come down. He'd walk down this way, and then there was a hallway here. I said, if you go down here all the way down, I said, I'll stand right with you. And I said, as he crosses that hallway down there, just that little opening, I said, there'll be people all around him. I said, you might get a glimpse of that white hair as he comes by. And they said, okay, good, we'd like to see him. So they went down there all the way down that end of the hallway, and I was standing right there with them. And it became later and later. He was late again. So he was late going where he was going to go according to the schedule. Yeah. But finally, about 30 minutes late, he moved. He came out of his suite and was coming down, and he went down there. And as he walked past that little opening, he looked down there as he walked past, and he saw those two ladies, and they waved at him. And he stopped in his tracks, and he walked all the way down that hallway, those two ladies, and he stood there, and he carried those two ladies, the detail around them, and me, the Secret Service agents around. He stood there and talked to those two ladies for about 5 minutes, just him and them. Now, there was no TV cameras. He wasn't doing it for show.
And he's already late.
He was already late, but he had a genuine interest in those two ladies, and he cared about them, and you could tell he did. And when he walked away, I mean, you could just tell it in those ladies' faces. It made their year, really. I mean, they were just so excited that the President of the United States had taken a little time, as busy as he is, to spend time with them, just them. And to me, I was impressed with that. And I relayed that story.
That says it all.
It does, and I relayed that story to Ron Kessler, and he included it in his book.
Is that right?
It's actually in his book, yeah. And my name's
does it say?
mentioned in it.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's Inside the Secret Service by Ron Kessler.
I may read that.
Yeah, it's a good book. I mean, he found some negative stories toward the Secret Service. It's not all, and it's not all particularly just wonderful, but overall, it's a pretty good read, I think.
If you'd have stayed there, what would have happened by now?
I'd probably be retired by now. Most of the people that I worked with are gone. They've all retired.
You think it's all pretty well the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as time goes, I mean, there's more and more things that they have to do to counter the latest threat or the latest technology, but overall, the protection is still very good and very much the same, I'd say.
I mean, they're not looking for somebody shooting a cannon at them like they would have when Lincoln was there. Now it's...
Yeah. Well, it can be radiation, biological, nuclear, all kinds of different
sound.
things. Yeah.
Aren't they doing some high frequency sound?
Yeah. So they have to guard against all that, all kinds of listening devices and everything. So they've got to be up to date on all the latest technology.
I wonder who keeps them up to date.
Well, there's just the United States government apparatus and what they know, and then the intelligence communities are good at it. Like when we'd go overseas as Secret Service agents, we'd be briefed on the latest intelligence in these countries and the threat levels and things like that. So we knew different things to be on the lookout for. I was with President Bush 41 on the lead up and run up to the Gulf War. I was on assignments with him, and I remember one time we were at what's called the Kuba Palace in Egypt. He'd gone over there previously. He's going to have Thanksgiving with the troops in the lead up to the Gulf War. The war hadn't actually started yet, but there was some intelligence that they were thinking there could be an attack on this meeting between President Bush and Hosni Mubarak, who was the president of Egypt at the time. And I remember getting those briefings about the possibility of that and how the threat level was so high. We were all ready, and there was also Egyptian troops involved, Secret Service, American military, and all. But of course, the attack never came. But they were ready for it, and the word later was that the host country was Egypt, and maybe some special ops folks from our military, who knows, were able to thwart some of that attack in advance, take care of it in advance, but just to make sure that this meeting went smoothly between those two. But where I was, there was never any action, but we were ready for it if there was. It was all based on intelligence.
Would you have to jump in front of the president if he was going to get shot?
Yeah.
How did you?
They trained you to do it.
But did they tell you have to raise your right hand and say, "I will jump in front of the president"?
Well, not exactly, but you take an oath. You take an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and from all enemies, foreign and domestic, like you hear all the time.
But it doesn't say, "I'll jump in front of a bullet."
Not exactly, but I mean, you're not that I recall anyway. But it was through your training. It was you were expected to give your life in exchange for theirs if it was necessary. Now, if you try to do everything you can to prevent that from ever happening.
I couldn't reach it.
The best, yeah.
Couldn't reach it.
or be,
yeah.
There's a joke, somebody might be bending over to tie their shoe, right at the right time. But no, I mean, but no, Secret Service agents take their job seriously, and they do a good job. I mean,
You think if something would have happened, your training would have. What kind of training would they give you?
It's repetitive in a lot of ways, and the reason it's repetitive is because you react in an emergency situation as you've been trained for in advance. And they've got this big facility outside of Washington, D.C., very similar to what people know about what the FBI has in Quantico. It's the Secret Service in Beltsville, Maryland, where they have these entire mock-up of city blocks and streets and all put together in motorcades, actual motorcades, and they run scenarios where they have people, actors, they got Hollywood-style explosives people that will come in and set up explosives, and there's gunfire, and it shoots actual projectiles, but it's like simunitions type stuff. It's not actual bullets because they're shooting at you. But you can get hit with these things, and it gets you used to being around gunfire and explosives and things, so that and how to react with that and not duck behind the nearest thing if you're right around the president. Now somebody's got to go to the problem, obviously, and stop it, because if you don't stop it, it's following you. It's coming after you. So depending on your assignment and your role, one might be to cover and evacuate the president and get him out of there. And part of that is making yourself a shield between him and whatever danger is. And then part of your role might be to go after the problem and stop the problem.
And you wouldn't know which one you're going to be because where you're at.
Well, it can depend on your assignment, whatever your assignment is, or where the threat comes from. So you've got to react appropriately in all those situations.
Was this training like 3-day seminar, or was it?
No, it was
intense.
It was intense. Some people refer to it as boot camp with better pay. But really, your whole first year on the job as a Secret Service agent is training. And then after that, there's periods of training, in-service training even after that. And then if you're assigned to a presidential or vice presidential detail, then there's you go through different shifts. There's 24 hours. They have what they call you got the 3 regular shifts and then a 4th shift, what they call training shift, which for 2 weeks you spend in training or updating your skills, shooting and things. Yeah, I got very good at shooting weapons. I was, I'd never really been growing up around guns much or anything like that, but they trained me how to do it. I became an expert, really.
They tell you close one eye?
Well, I mean,
You're
they
aiming.
give you the right sight picture, and then just how to, and on a variety of weapons. Yeah.
Why do people close one eye when they shoot?
Well, you got a dominant eye, and it just helps to get that sight picture for some people, and then some people don't. Some people will just be able to do it with one. I tend to close one, but
How you know it's your left eye?
that's just the way they say it's your dominant eye. You kind of, that's just the way I am. I don't know. But
That's the way they did it on,
just
that's
kept,
the way they did it on Adam 12.
yeah, that's why Steve McGarrett
Yeah.
and Reed Malloy did it. So
Was that-
anyway, I mean, but it was a good experience. But the downside to it is, and you'll hear this from even current agents today, it's not very conducive to family life in many ways. And it's the Secret Service, they own you really. I mean, you were subject to deployment anywhere in the world on a moment's notice, anywhere in the country on a moment's notice. I've been to every state but Alaska. Somehow I missed Alaska and the whole thing. Even on a refueling stop, we never stopped. We're flying in Alaska, and I think I've been in like 30-something foreign countries at some point or another during that time.
And
So there's a
most-
lot of travel.
Checking under desk.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's routine and can be boring, but you train for the times that it's not. But overall, I found there were really good people in the Secret Service. I mean, these are good people. I enjoy getting to know them and getting to from all different places around the country.
But they don't look at counterfeit money.
They do, yeah. They
that
still,
is
they
their
still do.
job.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
When you're not on a protection assignment, you're doing investigations, and part of that is they still investigate counterfeit money and financial crimes and other things.
So
They do a lot of-
there's people out there now still trying to fake a dollar bill.
There are.
Even as complicated as they've even got them now with the strip and
yeah, they made it harder to counterfeit over time because with those additional security features. But there's still some people that are out trying to do it.
and you still got the old dollars out in circulation.
Yeah, but they come out after so long. The federal, when it goes through the system, the Federal Reserve System, they pull the old ones out and put new ones in. But a lot of it's going cashless now too. I mean, my wife has a little business where she goes down the Chattanooga market and these things and sets up a booth and tent, sells home decor stuff. And my daughters do plants and loose leaf tea. But most of the transactions, even at places like that, are credit cards now. And so you have to be able to swipe.
You have them on their phone. Where
Yeah,
they
it's
have
on
that
one
thing.
of those. They swap them. So very few people carry a lot of cash anymore. I mean, people do, but most people will pay with cards now. So
Then
you
you
get
got
some
the
cash.
credit. Then you got the credit card. The what, like 2 or 3.
3%.
3%. Depending on the
Oh,
credit
it's
card, right?
Yeah. Well, think about it. It's pretty expensive to operate a small business like that because you've got the 3% credit card fee that you'd have to pay. You've got roughly 10% in sales tax, and then like with the Chattanooga market,
Don't forget
you
business.
have to pay. You
Don't
have to pay
forget
them.
business license.
Right, you have to pay them 10% of your sales too. So I mean, and business licenses and all that, and just the
Workman's
cost. of-
comp, general liability.
Well, yeah.
If you had 'em.
insurance, yeah.
Yeah.
If you had,
And if
yeah.
you had to hire an employee, then you'd have that and
Right.
whatever. And unemployed, you can't do it.
So the overhead is really tremendous, even on something like that. I mean, you have to sell quite a bit just to break even, but they do pretty well. I mean, I'm the pack mule. I carry it in and carry it out for them.
What they do, that explains why you brought tea with you.
Yeah.
Have you
Well,
seen-
this isn't actually the loose leaf tea. This is a Earl Grey, Bigelow.
So you're not drinking
I've
the
just
kind
been-
you're selling.
Well,
Or you're-
not on this one. Not on this particular one. I just happen, but I do like the loose leaf tea. It's actually better for you. It's not as processed, and it comes from a bigger.
Oh, I got some
portion
right
of the
here.
leaf.
I got
Yeah.
that thing. That thing you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what we got right there. Yeah. That's the best.
I got-
the best thing. That's why I've tried to drink a lot more of this or tea or loose leaf than
Yeah.
the Cokes. But in
That's-
honor of this good Coke.
Well, that's George McCoy's Yopon tea. He comes in here every now and then.
George McCoy.
He drinks the Yopon tea,
Okay.
and so anyway, you got that little thing, you strainer,
Yeah.
that
right.
you
That's
put
right.
it-
You put it in
yeah.
and then steep it for 2 or 3
and
minutes.
it is better.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
better. So I'm an advocate of it. If anybody's looking for loose leaf tea,
Now, what's the name of her operation?
Loose Leaf by Kettle. Loose Leaf by Kettle Creek. Yeah, Chris, my wife's business is Kettle Creek Designs. And
Now,
then,
what does Kettle Creek do? I've seen that
well,
on the
it's a creek out of Clay County in Tennessee, so it's got a Tennessee connection.
Why Clay County?
Well, really, it's just like the name, the Kettle Creek. It had a ring to it, but there's also a Kettle Creek State Park in Pennsylvania, and then there was a place, the Battle of Kettle Creek, like in the Revolutionary War, that was fought in Georgia, somewhere down in Georgia, and so it's just she just liked the name, and it also had a Tennessee connection, and so when my daughters did their version of the business, Chrissy started hers, and then my two daughters sort of got into it as well. The plants and the plant side is called Bloom by Kettle Creek, and the loose leaf tea is Loose Leaf by Kettle Creek.
Now, you said your daughters, one of them's a physical therapist,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This is all part time.
Just
stuff.
a
We just
hobby.
do it on the week. Hobby, but it's the hobby that pays a little sometimes, maybe. That's what we say.
Not even all the time, right?
It just depends on the show. I mean, sometimes you get rained out and you've got money, you've rented the space and you don't get your money back. And,
Is it always in Chattanooga?
no, we go different places. We live in North City.
How do you know where to go?
Strawberry Festival in Dayton, Ray County.
But
we
is
do
there
some
like
shows
a-
here? We do that Cowpea Festival up here.
Yeah, I've been.
We just did one down here at Grit
But
and
the
Grace
Cowpea
this last
was-
weekend. My wife
I
did.
saw that on
Yeah.
Facebook. Cowpea was, boy, they have a big group,
big
don't
crowd
they?
up there. Yeah, I mean,
Was that the 13th?
I'm not sure when it was. I know that it was. I believe last year it was canceled. I'm not sure if they. I think they're making. It's usually in the fall. It's one of the first festivals in the fall season, but I'm not sure when it
I
is.
think
don't
I
know
went
when that-
last year.
You may have.
Or
It would have been a place that, when we were growing up, a place we'd have really liked
Oh,
to
we'd
go.
have- yeah.
Remember when we used to go
Nilly
to Nilly
Bipper,
Bipper
yeah.
out at Red Clay, and we had
Do
so
they
much
still
fun
have
out
that?
there. They moved it at one point to Tri-State, but I'm not sure they're still. Remember the Tri-State Exhibition Center?
Yeah,
It never
yeah.
was the same, in my view.
as it was when it was across the street at Red Clay.
At Red Clay.
Remember, it was across
Yeah.
the street.
Right. It was Red Clay was it in its heyday. Of course, our grandmother, she showed pictures. Well, you got
Laverne.
all these paintings. Yeah,
Yeah,
Laverne Orme. You
she
got
did
paintings
those.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these may have been out there at the Red
Probably
Clay.
didn't sell.
Yeah, right. But they should have.
Yeah, they should have.
Yeah.
Everybody that has one left over brings it here, and I've run out of wall space.
I've got some hanging at my house.
Well, I've got this. This is the Laverne Slaughter Gallery,
Yeah. I
the
like
art gallery. So I've got them posted. But yeah, the Nilly Bipper. But we had a guy on here a few weeks ago. He was a real Elmer Earls. He's a hippie,
Yeah.
and boy, he's got a following. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I watched some of that episode. I gotta go back and finish it. But
He is so interesting.
Y'all talked about the bamboo curtain things. Is that the
Yep,
one?
bamboo. Yeah,
Yeah.
But he goes to these festivals that are more hippie oriented, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
But how does she know where to go to these things? They're like
She just researches and looks at the one. We hardly ever will do a first year show because first year shows just aren't established, and they generally, doesn't mean they won't, but they generally don't draw a big crowd. It takes a while for people to get used to that show and to draw a crowd. And she tries to go to shows that have pretty big crowds because she'll do pretty well the bigger crowds. You got more of an
So
audience.
this is like the Nilly Bipper.
It is, but where we really like to go is the Chattanooga Market down at the Horizon Pavilion, First Tennessee Pavilion, right there next to Finley Stadium.
Yeah, I've been
That
there.
is a good market for people to go to.
It's open air.
It's open air. It's under this big pavilion.
Yeah.
And right
Good par-
now
good
they've
parking.
got good parking, but they've started charging a little for parking, but it's not that much. But used to there was no charge for parking.
Why'd they start charging for parking?
I don't know. Just like everything else, I guess. Somebody realized they can make a little money off of it. I don't know.
So
But
does Chattanooga Market every weekend?
during the season, next weekend is the first weekend of the season. It'll basically run through second or third weekend.
So
December.
she'll be there every weekend?
No, she doesn't do it every weekend because
How
it's just
come?
too much, really. Because you got to make. It's one thing that's required is it to be handmade or locally produced or something like the loose leaf tea, while it may be you're getting it wholesale from a grower somewhere, you're packaging it and doing it all
branding
yourself. You're doing it yourself, blending it and doing those things, the different ingredients. It has to be all handmade and produced, so it's hard to, if it's just a small operation, to keep up the inventory production to keep selling it. So
Especially
you really
if it's
can't
a hobby.
do it. Yeah, because
I mean,
That's what they
she
do,
doesn't.
yeah.
They don't like get up Monday morning and start doing these things. It's just.
No, I mean you do it when you have time to do it, and
when you want to do it.
and when you want to do it, and do everything else you got to do in life too. So
Yeah.
we got it, or she got into it. I mean, like I just help her carry it in and carry it out, and I may cut some wood for her to help her, with her little thing. But it's all her business, it's all in her name. But she got into it after all her kids were grown and gone. Like as they were growing up, they were involved in sports and all kinds of things.
You
and
don't have time to-
weekends. You didn't have time to do anything.
You don't have time to do.
But that. So.
And when we say you don't have time to do anything, we mean you don't have time to do anything. It's just there's not possible, is it?
Not work full time, do everything else you do. Mow the yard, what you got, everything you got to do.
Yeah.
Without keep the neighbors from fussing.
Yeah.
So.
If you get the yard mower, then you got to make enough money to pay the yard mower.
Yeah.
So that's a wash.
So once they were all gone and out of school and out of sports and all that, we were just like, okay, well, what can we do that kind of be, and we just enjoy it. Number one, it gives us time to spend together, one, and number two, it's just fun atmosphere to be around.
So what do you
and it pays a little money.
on these weekends does it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or just Saturday and Sunday?
Depends on the shows. Some shows are Friday and Saturday. Some shows are Saturday and Sunday. Some shows are just Saturday. Some shows are just Sunday afternoon.
But what about the Chattanooga Market?
Chattanooga Market, the first weekend is Saturday and Sunday coming up, and then it's on Sunday afternoon, 11 to 4. That's where it is.
So it's ever Saturday and Sunday.
Through the season, yeah.
Through the
It
season.
does move indoors to the Chattanooga Convention Center right after Thanksgiving. They take a break for Thanksgiving, then it goes indoors for Christmas shopping indoors down there.
So
'Cause that's
peop-
when she sells a lot of stuff is right there. People are buying for the holidays.
So she just like takes her stock and goes down there and sets it up just like you would any craft show or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And somebody says, I'll buy this, and she swipes her credit card. And
Yep.
you know what you need is to have one of those places, a gift wrapping place. That way you
Good
say,
idea.
we don't sell the stuff, but we'll gift wrap it for you.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Instead
Instead of selling it, just wrap it.
Just wrap it. Yeah.
Yeah. Charge, how
a
much
good-
you charge?
good point.
I charge $3.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be a.
You learn, the one thing I remember, probably the reason you got into this in business is because remember growing up, you liked Monopoly.
I
You
like
liked playing
Monopoly, yeah.
And,
Yeah, and,
that may have, buying and selling real estate and building houses and hotels may have influenced you to get
It may
into
have.
what you have.
It may have.
Because you kept wanting to always play Monopoly all night long.
Yeah.
And I'd be ready to go to sleep.
And so what they do is the government just brings more money in now instead of it hands everybody more money so we can keep playing.
Do you think there's a problem? Do you think what's the national debt? Is it a problem or is it not a problem?
This has been going on since the dawn of time.
That's what I'm
It's just there's nothing new happening. If you think there's something new happening, watch Barney Miller. I always go back
Well,
to
the
old
Bible
shows.
says there's nothing new under the sun.
Solomon says nothing new under the sun,
Right.
and he's right.
Yeah.
So no, there's
There's been some form or fashion of it.
what you're talking about is that anyway, where they're that I forget what they're called, but no, we have to have things go up. That's the only reason. That's the only way that the poor can get ahead is to have inflation. Real estate goes up in value. I mean, of course, they have to have real estate, but it has to go up in value. So, then they have equity. Otherwise, they had to save equity, and you can't save equity. You can't make enough money to save. What are you going to save? $2?
I've been pleased at at least what they show that my house has increased in value over the last 20 years.
And
So I
most
do
of it's
believe
been the last 4 months.
Yeah, it shot up if you believe Zillow. I don't know if you believe that. or
Well,
not.
real estate will go up 2% a year. And when it doesn't go up for 5 years, you're getting ready to have a period of 10%. So what we're doing now is we're seeing where it was supposed to be had it not been suppressed.
So
But-
it's accelerating.
It's just catching up
Yeah.
to what it's going to do anyhow. And that's my opinion. That 89 cents will buy you a Gatorade, I guess. So
Well,
when
I
you
wonder though. I mean, back in the back over time, the Republicans talked about the importance of reducing the national debt and how we needed to bring that down, and it's now higher.
evidently
than
it wasn't a
has
problem.
been in our history. Maybe not in World War II in terms of percentage of the GDP, gross domestic product, but it's about to get there, and it just keeps. And now with all this pandemic assistance and all that, which I'm sure is needed, that's even adding more to it. At what point does it become a problem, or is it a problem? Maybe it's not a problem. I don't know. I've always thought we needed to be careful with that and not go too far, but I don't know.
Well, if you want to really get confused, you say, who do we owe?
Yeah, and some people say, well, we owe ourselves, and some people say we owe some portion to China. So I don't know. Bob Corker. Incidentally, I like Bob. I've always liked Bob Corker.
Mm-hmm.
When I won my sheriff's race, he was the first public official to call and congratulate me, Bob Corker, and I wasn't even expecting it. The phone rang, and he
What
said,
was he doing at that time?
he was a U.S. senator, and I thought, my goodness, that was really nice of him to call
Wonder why?
and congratulate me for winning a local sheriff's race. I hadn't even thought of. It hadn't even crossed my mind that somebody like that would call and congratulate me for winning a sheriff's race.
And
But it made an impression on me. I've
how
always
can you
liked
have
him.
a problem with a guy like that?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
always liked him. In fact, I actually think he'd make a good president. I know some people think that he may not have been as supportive of Trump as they would have liked to have seen him, but Trump was a different type of president than what I'm used to and that I've seen. And
He wasn't as
presidential
Yeah.
acting, maybe. And I'm not saying that. There was good points, and he may end up being president again. I don't know, but my advice, if I was advising President Trump on anything, I would say stay off that Twitter. Avoid
he has to now.
Yeah, avoid
Till
unnecessary
tomorrow.
arguments with people and this calling people names and all
Yeah.
that. And that's just some of that's just the way the New Yorker style in him.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, we might be more the same way if we were raised in New York and then
We're
and all
from the
that.
South. We say,
Yeah, we're more courteous and
yeah,
kind.
yeah.
And,
if we get mad, we might hit you in the head when you turn around. But
But I think that's what really kind of hurt Trump with some people. But anyway, back to Bob Corker. I think he'd make a good president. I think he's smart. I think he's got a ability to understand and know how the world works. Of course, he's got foreign policy experience when he was.
Yep.
So I don't know if he'll ever run or not. Probably being away from it this long, it may be hard to mount a campaign. I don't know. But you have people come from nowhere. Jimmy Carter came from nowhere, really, to win.
boy, he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
And so did Bill Clinton.
And Bill Clinton. Yeah.
I mean, he kind of came from nowhere.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
nobody expected him to win. So, I mean, and nobody expected Trump to win. I mean, if you remember back, everybody thought Hillary had it locked up. In terms of now Hillary did win the popular vote, apparently, by 3 million.
Yeah.
But Trump won the states where it counted in terms of electoral vote.
Do you think the electoral thing is important to give everybody representation?
I don't know, really. In a democracy, I kind of lean toward the popular vote.
Of course, we'd all go the way California'd be ruling everything, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, it would just be whoever wins the popular vote across the country would be your president. So I don't know. I mean, you look at
the majority would rule.
Yeah, that's a true democracy.
Yeah. That's getting over our heads.
Yeah.
People think we know what we're talking about.
We don't know. I don't know.
Now, when you left the Secret Service, did you immediately run for sheriff?
No. When I left, I was on the city council, and then I was getting transferred back to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave at that point because my children were settled in school and they were involved in sports and everything.
Had it been 5 years earlier or 5 years later, it might have gone.
Yeah, it was
now, is that
for
fate?
Me. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's been, in some ways I missed the Secret Service, but I have very much enjoyed the experiences I have also had outside the Secret Service and since the Secret
How about the day you said, I'm not going to go to the Secret Service? Was that tough?
I mean, it was, in some way, in a lot of ways it was tough, but I didn't, like I said, I'd already been to Washington and I wanted to stay here in Tennessee. And I had in the back of my mind at some point that I would run for office. See, I had been, one of the things about being in the Secret Service is you are around a lot of people that you tend to, as a young person, are not knowing to put up on a pedestal. The presidents and congressmen and governors and different things like that, which you do have respect for, but you realize that these people are a lot like you. They put their pants on the same way. They do things. They have the same same fears and same concerns and the same, am I doing this right? Or
so what got them there?
Well, I don't know. Like George Bush, here he was. Look at him. This is a human story about him too. We were down at his home in Westheimer in Houston. This is after he was president. He'd fought the Gulf War, was CIA director,
dodged the shoe,
all these things. Yeah, no, this was a 41.
Okay,
but he had those dogs. That was a good dodge of the shoe, actually.
3 times.
Yeah. The only thing I thought could have been better was if he had caught it and threw it back.
He dodged it 3 times.
Caught it and thrown it back, that'd have been even better. And hit the guy and knocked him down.
I don't think he was that smart. But anyway, back to
his dog got hit by a car. When it was out there, it was running around. It was, he had Ranger and Millie. It may have been Ranger. Actually got hit by a car out in front of the house as it was passing by, and it just tumbled it. It didn't kill it, but it yelped and it came running. Of course, everybody's concerned, how's the dog?
Yeah.
And he was out there and he was concerned about it and actually cried over the injury to that dog. Now it recovered.
Not the death, just the injury.
Just the injury. Cried about it. Now, and this is, again, no.
You mean like tears or boo-hoo?
Tears crying about. It was obvious he was concerned about that dog to the point that he shed a tear for this animal. Now, this is a guy who had. It kind of caused you to think that this guy's been through it. I mean, he's had to do and make some important, tough decisions that involved people's lives around the world, but yet he's human enough to cry over the injury of an animal, and I thought that showed he had a big heart.
Yeah.
In many ways. So I don't know, where were we going? Where were we going with this? What causes people to do?
Where were we, Glenn?
But anyway,
I forgot where we was at too. But it was a good point. You made a good point.
What caused people to do what they do?
Oh, let's see. Where were we, Glenn?
I think you're right. What
Yeah.
causes people to.
Yeah.
You got to lift up one president to prove your point, but yeah.
Yeah. So what causes people to do what they want to do, what they do?
Oh yeah. Why would somebody? We're talking about public office. Why would somebody want to run for sheriff, want to run for even city council, or run for president, or even do anything to put them up to where people can examine them and criticize them when they don't even know the facts of why they made this decision. We don't know all the facts, but yet we're going to criticize what they did. And what would cause some people to do that? And thank goodness they are there.
I have great respect for people who are in public office. Part of the reason is because I know what they go through to some level. Now, I've just been in public office on the local level, and that's bad enough. But when you get into the state and the national level and all that, I mean, it's tough. And people do, like you say, criticize and complain and gripe about things they really don't have a real knowledge
No clue.
of.
No clue.
So I've been hesitant. I've always said, like even in my current role on the parole board, until you have actually sat in that hearing and listened to all sides of the issue or whatever, or the questions, and heard from support and opposition and public officials and the person themselves, and looked at the whole case.
Now, when
don't
you
be critical of the decision that's made until you have been able to do that. And then if
Now,
you've
when
done
you
that,
say
then
sit
you can
on the
be critical.
board, you mean sit in the room? Being on the parole board, which we've skipped a lot of time frame there, but yeah, let's say that.
Or let's just say city council or anything. You share
Yeah,
anything.
anything. City council. I mean, we say, well, we read in the paper, say so and so voted this way. You say, oh, that dummy.
Yeah.
Who knows? You're not sitting there listening to all the facts,
Right.
all the stuff. So I think
Well-
as we get older, we learn to be less critical of other people's decisions, even though they seem crazy.
I'm less critical today of people than I was when I was younger, and I think that's a good thing. And I'm more open to diversity in many ways than I was when I was younger. Diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, and because I have, and some of it's been because of the jobs I've been in, the travel that I've done. And just knowing that there's oftentimes more than one way of looking at a problem or an issue, a different perspective. And I think it's important that people realize that and know and not be too critical of decision makers, because they've got to balance and weigh a lot of competing interests when they're trying to make a decision on these things, whether it's the planning commission or the city council or the county
Yeah, are
sheriff
they
or whatever it
are
is.
they voting for the will of the people or the greater of the community? There's
Yeah,
always
I mean,
been an argument
yeah.
there. Which
Well,
is it?
We're a representative democracy. In other words, we elect these people that we trust, supposedly, to go, and because we don't have time to look at every issue ourselves and make a decision, we've got to get the kids to soccer or t-ball or practice or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
work a job. We elect these people to go and study and look at the issues and learn about it, and then make a decision on our behalf that they think is in the interest of the best interest of the public at large. Not necessarily me as an individual, but in the best interest of the public at large. That's what we have here.
And so that's a lot of times I look at the news, say, well, I used to get upset about stuff that I thought going on. And I finally said, hey, I voted for this guy or that guy. They've gone in this position now. I'm just going to trust that they're doing the right thing, and I'm going to go back. I don't lay the ceramic tile. I hire a tile guy. I don't question
You
every
trust
move
that he knows what he's doing.
I've got
You
to.
got to.
I can't.
Yeah, you can't do it all yourself.
I can't go.
Right.
Refine my own gasoline oil to make my gasoline.
Right.
We have to leave stuff with people, and to what extent? I guess we just, so we don't worry about what. So what you're saying is right. Is what do you call it? A representative democracy.
Representative democracy.
Yeah. So just let those guys handle it.
Yeah, that's.
Say good luck, man.
And if they really mess up or really bad, then you've got the option to vote against them in the next election.
Look at it a month for the time.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But now going back to when you said, okay, I'm not gonna go to Washington. I'm gonna stay here.
Oh, that's where we were
I mean,
talking about that.
how big a decision was that?
Well, I mean, I took a pay cut initially to do it.
To do what were you
to
going to
stay
do then?
here. Well, I had in my mind that I'd run for office. I had always wanted.
Yeah,
That's what I was saying. I guess that we got
Yeah.
before I got sidetracked. Is I had
Yeah.
seen how these people these people are.
That's where
they're
it's
not
at.
that much different than me in terms of just a human being and a president. You could be a successful president of the United States because you have an apparatus around you. Let's say Dee Burris is elected to be president of the United States. If you could do that, if you could get enough people to vote for you and put your name, I have every confidence that you would be a successful president because you are of average intelligence. You're smart enough. You're a successful man. You've got a reasonable education. You treat people well. You're fair. You're honest. All those things. You would have an apparatus around you that feeds you that necessary information and stuff that you would need to make a decision and operate. Then you've got people out there that you can delegate. It'd be like a contractor building a house on a different level, but it's government.
It's all the
related.
same.
It
It
operates in many ways the same. You got an organization there, so you could be successful. And they come with you, say, "Okay, we've got this problem, Mr. President. Here's the issues. Here's the problems. You can ask questions. Here's some solutions we propose: A, B, C, D. Do you like any of these? You want us to go back to the drawing board? No, I think I like solution E right there. Is what the drought. All right, we'll make sure.
The guy that laid out solution E. He made a pretty good case, and he's got kind of a track record, and I know he's sincere, and we're going to go with him.
We're going to go with him on this time. Yeah, and it may not be the next time, but on this one, we're going to go.
So you thought, but when you quit, when you didn't go with the Secret Service, where was you going to work?
Well, I got hired pretty quick to be the EMA director here in Bradley County.
Okay, yeah.
So but I didn't go into that necessarily intending to stay at that, which I enjoyed my time there. I went into that to buy my time until the next sheriff's election. I just wanted to, I felt like I could do a good job as sheriff, and I wanted to run for sheriff at some point. So
that was an emergency.
Yeah, or
The TV show.
The TV show.
What was that?
Adam 12.
No, Adam
Hawaii
12. but-
5-0.
No, the other one. Emergency?
Yeah, emergency.
Yeah. So EMT.
Yeah.
You'd covered it all.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, except for this wasn't really responding to accidents and fires. It was more planning for big community events. But my first day on the job there, they had a big fire up at Olin, and they were Chemical, and they were worried about the possibility of having to evacuate. Of course, that didn't
I remember
develop.
that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was my first day.
They
on
closed
the
the
job.
road, the north side.
They have a plan in place just in case.
I had a
and all
job
that.
going up there, and I went around and around, and I got up over there.
So were you criticizing us?
No, I was too busy to think about anything.
But anyway, so I just wanted to run for sheriff, and I just have always somehow at some point looking back, I developed an interest in being in elective office, and really. I miss being in elective office now in many ways, and think in the back of my mind, maybe one day, and I don't know for what or when or where, I may run again for elective office, because it's not for the sake of running for office. It's because in a position like that, you have the ability to affect people for good in many ways. And I really enjoyed my time as sheriff. Had Zach Wamp not retired as congressman, and I probably, looking back, to be honest with you, made a kind of a hasty decision to run for an open seat in Congress and not run for sheriff. I could have run for both because they were both up at the same time, but I felt like that people would be critical of running for two offices at the same time, that I needed to pick one or the other. And because I had served in Washington and had seen how Washington works and how I just felt like that I could make a good difference up there in many ways. And so I ran for that office when he vacated. I didn't want to run against Zach Wamp. It had been difficult. But when it was an open seat, I I threw my hat in that ring and jumped in the race. Well, there were 12 other people that jumped in the race too. And it was 13 county district. While I was well known in Bradley County and maybe Hamilton County to some degree, I wasn't well known anywhere else. And I won Bradley County running for Congress as the sitting sheriff. I won Bradley County, but if you recall, Robin Smith, who had been chairwoman of the Republican Party across the state, she won Hamilton County. She's from Hamilton County. And then Chuck Fleischman, who actually won the congressional race, won enough of a portion of Hamilton County and the rest of all those counties. I came in third overall, but won Bradley County. The two most populous counties in the race, in the congressional race in the 3rd district then, were Hamilton and Bradley. Of course, Hamilton's a lot bigger than Bradley, but at the time, but we're growing. But I won Bradley, Robin Smith won Hamilton County, and then Chuck won every other county, and enough votes in Hamilton and I guess Bradley to put him in as the 3rd district congressman.
And that's where he's at now.
He's been at now. It's very difficult under our system that we've got to beat an incumbent congressman. It's just very difficult. So I wanted to run when it was an open seat. I really kind of...
So running against Fleischman now is like, no, it's too difficult.
I think it is. I mean, and I like Chuck, and he's doing a good job. But the reason and we came out of that race, even though we were in the race together and we were competitors, we're friends. I mean, I like Chuck, and he's doing a good. I wouldn't want to run against him.
Now Fleischman, he is a nice guy.
He is.
I met him a couple of.
Yeah.
I got my picture taken with me and him and Eddie Dyer. Remember, you know Eddie.
I like Eddie.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. In fact, we had lunch the other day.
I had lunch with him today
Okay.
at Panera Bread.
We went to Burger King.
Which day?
Probably Tuesday or Wednesday of last week.
Well, we go after church and
Yeah.
went to Panera Bread. Boy, they were slow over there.
Yeah.
I guess they can't get any help. But
Probably tough right now.
yeah, I guess so. But yeah, me and Eddie had our picture taken with Fleischman. But now, what's your relationship with Haslam? How did y'all get? How did that start?
That's interesting because when I was running for Congress, of course, I announced I wasn't going to run for re-election for sheriff. I was going to run for Congress in the 3rd district. But hindsight, looking back, in a lot of ways, I wish I'd just run for re-election for sheriff. Of course, I lost my congressional race, but I did win in Bradley County. I haven't lost a race in Bradley County, and
at least you can say that, right?
Which is a good thing. City council, sheriff, and my congressional race all won in Bradley County. So I'm very, very grateful and thankful to the people of Bradley County for the support that they've given me over the years. So after I lost the congressional race, the most immediate thing that happened was Jim Hammond, sheriff of Hamilton County, asked me to come down there and join his administration as sheriff. Well, he was sheriff of Hamilton County, still is. And I thought that was just really nice of him, and I've always liked him. And I went down there and joined. I was over the corrections division of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. And stayed there for a while until there was an opening at the East Ridge for the city manager. Now, I have a degree in government and public administration, so that was all kind of fitting.
Kind of a natural.
And I thought, well, and that job paid quite a bit better than what I was making at the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. And I knew Eddie Phillips, who was an interim city manager over there, because I'd worked with him in the Secret Service when we had, I believe it was Cheney or somebody come to Chattanooga and had gone through East Ridge down to visit the battlefield in Chickamauga Battlefield. And Eddie Phillips was the police chief in East Ridge, but had gone on to be the interim city manager when they were looking for another city manager down there at the time, but he wasn't going to serve full time in that position. It was interim. And I got to talking to him, and he kind of encouraged me to apply for that open city manager seat. And I was kind of interested in it because I thought it'd be challenging, good work. And I did, and I ended up getting the job. And that was a good time, and we did a lot of good in East Ridge. In fact, all that Exit 1 development through there, that was done while I was city manager, Brent Lambert was mayor, and we had several city councilmen that supported that effort. And John Anderson, who was the
Chattanooga lawyer,
but he was also served as the city attorney for the city of East Ridge. He's the one that really put us on this. It's the Border Region Tourism Development Act that the state passed that allowed cities or municipalities or governments that bordered another state to designate an area that was a tourism development zone, because in order to try to encourage, to encourage businesses to locate in Tennessee as opposed to Georgia. There was some incentives through this act. There's incentives available, some tax rebate returns for the designated district. Any businesses in that district, the money on sales tax that was collected would first go to the state, and then the state would rebate it back to the municipality to use for the development of infrastructure and incentives and things like that. So we were able to get that designation for East Ridge during that time and use that money to attract that development and develop the roads and infrastructure. And now you look at what's happened around Exit 1 down there.
Isn't that like they got a Starbucks there? And
Oh, they've got they've got that whole Bass Pro Shop. They've developed all that. They've redone that big group of the soccer stadium coming in. There's all kinds of hotels and restaurants, chicken.
Starbucks,
all those things. It's all done as a result of the efforts that we worked.
And they're alcohol free, aren't they? Or Dry County? No, Dry
You're
City.
talking about
East Ridge.
I don't know. I think got some. I don't think so. Unless they've changed it. I don't. They had some.
Did you ever eat at that restaurant down there across from City Hall? They have it's like the old Fort here, but what's the name? Armando's or. We did a job in East Ridge last year.
There is an Armando's hamburger, but the one you're thinking of is I'm having another senior moment. I can't think of the name of it, but yes, I've eaten.
What is the name of that place? Golly, I did a job down there last summer and ate there for 2 months. They were the last place to close for COVID. I ate there every day. What is the name?
It was good. I can't remember. But it's a really good restaurant.
Utopia?
Locally owned.
Utopia?
And that doesn't sound familiar. But anyway, I served as city manager down there for 2 years, and then they had an election, and new city council members came on. And unfortunately, East Ridge kind of has a little track record of every time they have an election, they get a new city manager, or they did up until this time. Most of their city managers just served about an average of 2 years, in which I was about average. So when the new council members came on, the balance of power, so to speak, shifted a little bit. And so they wanted to bring in another city manager.
Hometown boy or something.
I don't, so I was out and the new guy was in. So when I was out again, I went back with Sheriff Hammond. He immediately asked me to come back. In fact, Sheriff Hammond encouraged me to move to Chattanooga and run for sheriff when he when he decided to retire, of course. But I just felt like Bradley County was my home, and it's where I needed to stay. And he's retiring after this term, and there's his chief deputy now, which came in, and he's going to be running for sheriff, and there may be other people run. But I thought it was nice of him to encourage me to do that, and I was honored that he did that at the time. And I just found him to be a very good person and a good Christian man, and I really enjoyed my time spent with him there. And he does a good job in my view. And he gets criticism like any sheriff does.
Sure,
He's tough, but in my view, the Hamilton County's got him a good sheriff there. So anyway, I told him I'd come back, but I'd only do it on an interim basis again, and just kind of just see what is out there. And then unexpectedly, I received a phone call one evening at the house from Jeremy Harrell. and he was worked in Governor Haslam's office. And I think I started to say this, but I'd met Governor Haslam while I was running for Congress. He was running for governor, and I was running for Congress, and we were at some of the same events together. So you talk about fate and how things go. So Jeremy Harrell called and said, Governor Haslam is interested in, we need somebody on the parole board. We've got a vacancy, and we're looking for somebody specifically who has law enforcement, criminal justice background. Would you be interested in it? Well, I hadn't even thought about it. It hadn't even crossed my mind. I didn't know there was a no.
Was everything
going good down there?
No problems?
No problems, but I knew I didn't want it. It wasn't where I wanted to stay full time, but it was a good
So
opportunity.
this call's out of the blue.
Yeah, and I don't know how it originated or who put the idea in anybody's head, or if Governor Haslam just had that idea on his own, or somebody called him and said, "Hey, Tim Gobble's available. If you need somebody, I don't know."
You have no clue.
I have no idea. Nobody ever said. And I told Jeremy I would be interested in it, and I was. After I thought about it and told him, and I was appointed to the parole board. I've been on the parole board for now 8 years. I was appointed to fulfill an unexpired term of a board member that had left, and then I was reappointed by Haslam to a full 6-year term. There's 6-year terms on the parole board.
How did you know when you took it that he'd reappoint you for?
I didn't. I didn't know that. I mean, and it's strictly the governor's prerogative. I mean, he can.
So the governor appoints those.
There are 7 board members across the state. And
total
7.
The whole state of Tennessee, 7 of them. I'm sitting here with one of them.
Yes.
There's only 6 others.
There's 6 others across the state. And we make all the decisions on people who are eligible for parole under the laws of the state of Tennessee. If they become eligible for parole consideration, then the board will review their case or hear their case, depending on the level of severity, and then make a decision on whether or not they should be paroled from prison and serve the remainder of their sentence in the community as opposed to behind prison walls.
What do you mean by in the community?
Out in the community, living at home.
Could they move to Florida?
No, not without permission. But they could. There is an interstate compact agreement between the 50 states that
gets
if they have somebody on parole in Florida, let's say, that wants to move to Tennessee, and there's a valid reason for it, that we would supervise them. The Tennessee Department of Corrections would supervise them while they're in the state of Tennessee, and then Florida would do the same for us. It's called a interstate compact agreement. That's what it's called.
Now, somebody commits a crime, they get arrested, they go to jail, they get a lawyer, they lose, they're going to have to spend 20 years in prison. They go spend 20 years in prison with the you always hear on TV, 20 years without the possibility of parole, or you say 20 years with the possibility of parole. So that means that after so many years they can apply?
Well, not necessarily apply, but they become eligible for parole automatically after they serve a certain portion. 95 to 96% of all people that enter into the prison system will eventually come out of the prison system. The question is when. Will they serve their entire sentence and expire?
Well, that's an interesting statistic.
It's only very few will spend their entire remainder
We're
of
talking
life.
about even physical stuff, death and all this. Well, that's quite I would think that would be high. Isn't that a lot?
There's a lot of people that come out of prisons. If you abolished parole, I don't think you could build prisons fast enough or raise taxes fast enough to cover the cost, because roughly about 3,000 to 5,000 people come out of prison on parole, some level of supervision every year. Now, the
just in Tennessee?
Just in Tennessee. Mm-hmm.
Not even talking about another state, you don't care.
Just in Tennessee. No. The challenge is to try to find those that are not a danger to public safety, that have been rehabilitated, that have shown the potential to go out in the community and serve their remaining sentence in the community at a much less cost than it costs to incarcerate somebody in a prison system, which is very costly. They say in Tennessee it costs about $79, $80 a day to incarcerate somebody. And it's a big portion of the state budget. So it is to society's advantage in many ways to find people that have served their time, have served a portion, enough of their sentence that it's not disrespectful to the law to release them on parole. And keep in mind, they're still serving their sentence on parole. If they can go out and be productive citizens and pay taxes and support their families and do the things that they're supposed to do, or should be doing.
So parole is not just a get out of jail free card. It's got its stuff.
It's got, yeah, and if you don't abide by the conditions of parole or the special conditions that are set by the board, you can be revoked and brought back to prison.
To me, that'd be the most well-behaved people in the world. Somebody that had gotten paroled.
You would hope. You'd hope.
But
a good number of them end up coming back, but it's not so much for committing violent crimes. It's because they have absconded and just quit doing what they're supposed to do sometimes. But we're trying to get away from revoking people, and we have been getting away from revoking people for minor things, trying to give them chances. Graduated sanctions, TDOC, Tennessee Department of Corrections, has a graduated sanctions thing, so that if it's just a minor little thing, you're not going to get revoked and come back to prison. But if you just keep doing things and keep messing up and not, or you commit another crime, then you're coming back to prison.
now does every sentence have a parole period attached to it? Like, okay,
No.
you committed this crime, you can be you're subject to parole in 7 years. How do you know when they're up for parole? Who says, okay, they're up for parole?
Well, at the time of the sentencing, let's say you would be sentenced to 10 years for, let's give an example, just one that just off the top of my head, aggravated vehicular homicide. You get 10 years. You're sentenced at the time of your sentencing 10 years at 30%.
Who says that?
The judge. The judge.
So the judge has the ultimate power of that.
Got the power.
Can he say 10 years at 5%?
Whatever he's allowed to under the law. There's certain restrictions. The legislature passes the law.
Oh, so he has.
So he has a certain guidelines that
So
he
he
has to
picks
operate under.
something.
Right. So 10. What you see a lot is maybe 10 years at 30%. That means after 3 years, and then I just picked that because it's easy for the math.
Yeah.
After 3 years, they're eligible for parole. And so at that point, the parole board will hear their case. TDOC, Tennessee Department of Corrections, will say, okay, you have served now the minimum portion of the sentence that you are required to serve under the law at the time that you were sentenced by the judge. And now you are eligible for parole. They'll notify the parole board, and we will schedule them a hearing. But just because they're eligible for parole doesn't mean that they'll be granted parole. There's a lot of factors that we look at. We have to hear them.
Has to be heard.
We have to hear them. It's not optional. That's what people don't understand.
All
They
right.
think that they petition the board and we just decide which ones we hear and which ones we don't. But we have to hear them
You
under
have
the
to.
law. Yeah. We don't have to grant them parole, but we have to hear their case.
And so that when this period is up, how many a day are now eligible to be heard?
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly how many. I know that this is really more than a full-time job in the sense that if I'm not hearing cases on a particular day, I am reviewing and voting on cases that other people have heard and made recommendations on. So
Who's
there
other
may-
people?
The other parole board members, and then we have a team of hearing officers that go out into the county jails and hear, because we've got people both in prison. State operates the prison system, and then we've got the county sheriffs that operate the county jails. And when anybody's arrested in the state of Tennessee, they'll go to a county jail first, and then once they may be released on bond or whatever, or they may be held until their trial or whatever. But once they're sentenced, if they're sentenced to a sentence that's over a year, which is a felony, then they're in state custody at that point, but they may still be in the county jail. The prison system, if you're sentenced to more than more than 11 months and 29 days. If it's 11 months, 29 days, you're going to stay in the county jail. If you're sentenced to
12
a year,
months.
12 months or more,
Yeah.
then you're become a property of the state, basically, or in state custody, I guess I should say. And then you may still be serving that time in your county jail, because when I was sheriff, we'd have people that might stay in the county jail up to 3 years before they're transferred to state prison because they were waiting on beds to open. So the state will reimburse the counties some money for them to stay in for those state prisoners that are in the county jails. So the parole hearing officers will often go to the county jails and hear those people that may be up for parole for minor
So there's
sentences.
7 of you, but you also have.
We've got a staff of about 80 people.
Yeah,
across
that's
the state.
yeah.
Yes.
And that's maybe not enough. When you figure how many counties are there?
95 counties, and no, it's really not enough in the number
That's
of
less
people
than
that
one
we
per
hear.
county.
Really, I mean, we're really a very efficient agency and do a lot with the resources that we have, and we save the state a lot of money in the long run by identifying those who have been rehabilitated and that can go out and serve effectively in the community and at a much less cost. Because can you imagine if 3,000 to 5,000 people, let's say, and don't go out on parole every year. You've got to house them and feed them and somewhere. Well, one big prison might hold 1,000 to 2,000 people. So can you imagine the number of prisons we would have to have?
It'd be exponential.
Yeah, it'd just be huge. So it saves the state a lot of money in the long run. But the key is keeping those people who are dangerous locked up. There are some people who should not be paroled, and there are many people who should be paroled, but the dangerous ones, like Bill Lee says, let's be tough on crime but smart on crime, and I think he's right on that.
So when you have all this, so y'all have like next week, will you have a vote? Will y'all vote on one that's been looked at?
Yeah.
How
Every
many
day.
will you vote on?
Well, it can depend.
Could
It
there be-
depends on the day.
would
But
there
I mean,
be-
there's been some days when I may have to review 30, 40, or 50 cases.
But reviewing's one thing. I mean, actual.
Yeah. We vote on all of them.
I mean,
We
but
cast
how
a vote.
how many of these meetings would you have a week?
Well, you're talking about where we're actually conducting the hearing with
No,
it's
the
done
one
by,
is the hearing what you call the vote.
yeah. Well, no, the hearing is where we do it by video now. Used to, board members had to travel to each prison, but it's now by video teleconference, where I'm sitting in my office and I'm hooked in, and it's
But-
just
but-
like
but-
me and you across the table.
But before
and other people.
COVID, which we assume
Well, no,
it'll.
this was before COVID.
Oh.
We've gone to this system,
Oh.
yeah, and that we've been working just like we have always, basically through COVID, except we haven't.
So
been
you're
doing-
sitting at your office over here.
right over here, right.
You have a curtain behind you.
I have 2 flags behind me and a seal, and it looks real official and
Wow.
nice. I mean, yeah. This is because
You'll think
that's the way
you're
that's-
you're General Flynn. You know he always says behind.
Yeah. I mean, it's an official
Yeah,
proceeding.
yeah.
I mean, it is.
And it's an official office.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and they're weighty decisions in the sense that you directly affect, and in a way, it's
Oh, I couldn't
you
imagine.
directly affect people's lives.
I mean, we're saying it in a joking manner, but this is huge. Isn't it? It's the next more important date than when people get sentenced. That's probably the worst. This is the next one.
Yeah, I mean, people come, when they come up for parole, a lot of times they're nervous, and you might be, if you were in their shoes. So, I try to treat everybody with dignity and respect, and I also want to listen to those that may be victims that have input into these cases and take that into consideration. Prosecutors will come to the hearings often and have their input. There'll be different people will weigh in.
Could this potential parolee have a lawyer?
He can, yeah, if he wants to. It's not like in court where you're assigned a lawyer, but if you want to have a lawyer come and speak on your behalf, we allow that. We do.
Can you tell in the faces of the ones that I guess this is $1 million question, but can you kind of say this guy really wants out, or this guy, it's just his time's up and he's.
You can get a feel for a lot of people by talking to them and spending time, and not only that, you look at the file and what they've done, their record, their programs that they've taken, how they've acted and conducted themselves in prison, how they express themselves, the level of support that they have, a lot of different factors
Their
that you
wife
consider.
still with them, etc.
Yeah, we also have what's called a validated risk needs assessment that TDOC administers that has been helpful to us. Also, there's a drug and alcohol abuse assessment that's also administered by TDOC that is helpful. We also have the ability to have psychological examinations conducted of individuals that are up for parole. That's done through
Do you have
Vanderbilt Medical Center.
Do these divisions sometimes recommend we recommend or we don't recommend?
Well, what we will ask for a lot of times is what do these professional evaluators think their propensity for future violence might be, or to reoffend in a certain way, or transition needs.
Because that's the
key.
question.
That's the real
It's
key.
not whether they did it or didn't do it.
That's not the issue. We're not
that's not
retrying the case.
We're not retrying.
Right.
I bet y'all say that 1,000
To
times
say
a
that,
day.
yeah, probably do. We're not there to retry the case. We're there to look at their case because under the law they're eligible for parole consideration. Now, have you worked and are you a good candidate for parole? Have you rehabilitated yourself? Have you worked hard? Can you go out and be successful in the community? And I actively search for those people. And if I can find them and feel like that they can go out and do the right thing and not harm somebody else, I'll vote to parole them. But if I think that they're going to go out and commit more crimes or hurt somebody or go out and drive intoxicated and risk the public safety, then no, I won't vote to parole. But I vote to parole quite a number of people.
Do you think from all this information that you're gathering, when you get ready to vote, do you feel pretty good about the vote?
I do, yeah. I mean, it is a weighty decision, like you said, but I feel like we get the information that we need, the data and the evidence, to make an informed decision. Now, are we always right? No, we can make mistakes. We don't have a crystal ball where we can see the future, but more often than not, in my view, we're right. More often than not.
Do you see how this is all connected? From Adam 12 to emergency. Everything you have actually now into a career that has boiled down what I think you were trying to do, which
when I was 10 years old.
Which was trying to help be of service to people.
Well, I spent my career in public service in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when you ran for school. Remember when you ran for school?
Yeah, at student body president.
Student body president, yeah.
Against at Cleveland High School, and I barely lost that one actually, but I won while I was in college. I was student body president in college.
Who was it you ran against?
Stephen Bro. Remember Stephen Bro?
Yeah. I remember you made us all wear those jackets.
I had a campaign. You were on my campaign.
I was on your campaign. I had to wear that jacket.
Yeah.
That might have been why you lost.
Yeah, no.
Is this the end of it, Tim, or is there more to come?
What do you mean?
For Tim Gobble?
Oh, I don't know. I'm happy where I'm at. I hope that Governor Lee will reappoint me to the parole board. I enjoy the parole board. I feel like that I can do well on the parole board and can make a difference on the parole board, and I am generally in agreement with his philosophy and what he tries to do. You know, he worked through the Men of Valor program, and that is a very good program that seeks to identify and help people coming out of prison and transition them back to society and be successful in society for those 96% that are coming out. Now, there are other organizations like that, but he was part of Men of Valor, and they do a very, very good job. They're faith-based. and they do a good job. And I think that's the right approach to try to help people, not just let them serve their time and come out with no support or no help. They need help getting on their feet. If they don't have jobs, a lot
I don't
of people
know how
won't
they do
hire.
it.
It's very, very difficult. And so when you have organizations in place, people like that work to help, it reduces recidivism. And I think it's good. And Bill Lee is very much about that. He wants to be tough on crime, but smart on crime. And he knows how costly, he's a good businessman. He knows how costly it is to incarcerate these people. And of course, crime itself is costly too. I mean, you know, we don't want people out hurting people. We can't have a civil society if people don't abide by the rules and safety of the public. But those that make mistakes, there's hope for them, and we need to help them transition back to society, and it benefits all of us, and it helps public safety. And I agree with that philosophy, and I appreciate the governors, both Haslam and Bill Lee, for their work on that and their attempts at criminal justice reform, and I support that. And I come up for reappointment here in about a year, and I'm hopeful that he'll reappoint me to the parole board. But if not, I will. You know, it's not the end of Tim Gobble. I'll find something to do going forward. But like I say, I don't exactly have any particular plans at this point.
I don't know if anybody should be in that job, it should be you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, that's a good one.